Shy girl discovers after 7 surprising minutes that her tablemate is the company's millionaire CEO. Emily sat at her usual lunch table, her heart racing with unease as the chatter of confident colleagues enveloped her. She kept her weathered journal close, the pages filled with dreams of success, dreams that felt impossible in the shadow of her peers' bold ambitions. At 28, she was a data analyst in a high-powered tech firm, but inside, she often felt like a ghost. Today promised to be another solo hour, scribbling notes or shelling peanuts, her small refuge from the pressures of the corporate world that belittled her introspective nature. As she perused her usual corner, the only empty seat beside her was filled unexpectedly by a man in casual attire, his energy radiating a warmth she hadn't anticipated. "Mind if I join you?" he asked, flashing a disarming smile. Before she could answer, they exchanged names. Emily relaxed slightly, allowing the lively banter of trivia questions to ease the tension in her shoulders. She shared a laugh with him over obscure facts, a spark igniting between them that had been absent in her recent lunch breaks. Then came the moment of truth. She talked about her modest upbringing, candidly revealing the deep-seated fear that clung to her like a heavy cloak. As she spoke, she couldn't help but notice how this stranger listened, genuinely engrossed in her words. But just as she began to feel a flicker of camaraderie, a sneering voice erupted from a nearby table. "What's this? Emily thinks she's going places?" The dismissive jab sliced through her, panic rising in her chest. Could this man, this unexpected ally, truly see her worth? Just as Michael, as he de-introduced himself, began to respond, the room thickened with judgment. Whispers morphed into pointed glares. It became evident that he was not just a friendly face but the company's millionaire CEO. The atmosphere stifled as his peers expressed disbelief, questioning his leadership for associating with someone they deemed beneath him. Emily shrank inward, a familiar sense of inadequacy washed over her. She felt small, unworthy of the attention he had so willingly given. "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." In that charged moment, Michael faced a dilemma: retreat back into the comfort of his status or risk it all to champion her talent, which had begun to shine in their brief, shining exchange. He met her gaze, and time blurred, anticipation and fear intertwining. Would this be the moment she'd been waiting for? Or yet another instance where the moment slipped, leaving her yearning for the strength to step into the light? As the cafeteria buzzed with murmurs, Emily sat tense, caught in the storm between hope and self-doubt, the very air thick with uncertainty. She realized the stakes had never felt so high, as she teetered on the edge of her dreams and fears. What would she choose when her moment arrived? The tension hung palpably in the air, a taut string waiting to snap. As Michael finally spoke, his voice steady and authoritative, Emily felt an electric charge course through her. This unexpected confrontation tested not only her strength but also her deepest desire to be seen beyond her timid facade. "Look," he began, addressing the jeering table with a calmness that belied the murmurs swirling around them. "Emily's insights aren't just valid, they're vital. Every single one of you knows this company thrives on innovation, and innovation emerges from diverse perspectives. Dismissing her is a mistake this team cannot afford to make." Each word cut through Emily's uncertainty, the warmth of his belief igniting something within her. She had always allowed such remarks to settle like dust on her confidence, but here, in this precarious moment, she felt an inkling of defiance. A few teammates at the offending table exchanged startled glances, possibly taken aback by the CEO's willingness to defy their unspoken hierarchy. Emily's heart raced as she considered how she might respond. Could she, for once, inject her voice into the narrative swirling around her? Or would she retreat once more into the background, relinquishing her chance at growth? She swallowed hard, fingers tightening around the edges of her journal. There was a resolve building within her, an uncharacteristic surge. "Thank you, Michael," Emily began, surprising even herself with the steadiness of her voice. "I may not have the same experience or accolades yet, but I have ideas worth sharing. I've been analyzing our recent data trends, and I think there's potential in a shift towards a more diverse clientele." The words flowed out, her heart pounding as if trying to escape her chest. If we can make our services more accessible, we could not only expand our market but also strengthen customer loyalty. The room stilled, all eyes on her. There was recognition, a flicker of surprise among her colleagues as they processed her assertiveness. Could this be the beginning of a new Emily? The thought both thrilled and terrified her. Michael nodded, a satisfied smile creeping onto his lips. "That's exactly the kind of thinking we need more of. Let us discuss this further, shall we?" His invitation felt electric, an affirmation that she had more than just a place at the table, she had a voice. As the lunch hour melted away, Emily found herself participating in discussions, sharing not just her ideas but engaging actively with her peers. Each comment lifted her further from the shadows she'd inhabited for so long, solidifying her transformation from the silent observer to a critical component of the team's dynamic. Though she felt exhausted by the end of it, the shadow of self-doubt lingered. Would this newfound courage sustain her outside the protective bubble that Michael had inadvertently built around her during their exchange? That evening, she sat surrounded by the comforting clutter of her apartment, pouring her thoughts into her journal. Doodled sketches alongside her data analysis echoed her excitement, a mixture of passion and fear intertwined. Then, a glimmer of self-awareness struck her. This opportunity was just the beginning. She had opened a door, but what lay ahead would require her to step through with intention and confidence. Every inch of progress bore the weight of further decisions ahead. The question now was whether she had the resilience to maintain this trajectory, facing critics or skeptics around her in the days to come. As she flipped through her notes, the next challenge began to percolate in her mind, an upcoming presentation she would need to give on her findings. She would have to gather her courage and present her ideas to the entirety of the senior management team. The moment of true confrontation awaited. Would she take a stand and showcase her potential, or would the shadows return to reclaim her? The dull hum of her laptop filled the quiet room as Emily stared at her presentation slides, the familiar chant of self-doubt echoing in her mind. Despite the exhilaration from the earlier lunch, the looming meeting cast a much darker shadow. The senior management team was no small audience. These were the very individuals whose opinions could lay the foundation, or demolish, the progress she had fought to achieve. Each click of her mouse brought her one step closer to that moment of truth, but also raised the stakes emotionally. She revisited her data graphs, but instead of excitement, an anxiety knot tightened in her stomach. Were her suggestions truly innovative or merely naive? The search for validation felt like an uphill battle, her fingers resting hesitantly on the keyboard as memories of past criticisms surfaced unbidden. If she falters, she could easily unravel the respect Michael had garnered for her. Determined, she snapped her laptop shut. Imagining the faces in the room, the jaded expressions of those who thrived in the corporate trenches, she realized that uncertainty, far from a barrier, was a shared human experience. If she faltered, they would have their own shadows to grapple with. The thought brought a flicker of comfort. Perhaps they, too, had once stood at the precipice of their potential, feeling the weight of the world stacked against them. Emily paced her small apartment, her mind racing through the feedback she had received on her previous projects, a mix of acclaim and critique. Each piece of feedback had something to teach her. Drawing from these memories, she allowed herself to analyze how she could turn their words into guiding lights rather than chains binding her to fear. She would embrace their judgment, transforming it from a source of shame into a wellspring of support. She returned to the presentation, now drafting a narrative that wove together her analysis, the market potential, and her personal journey of transformation. She added anecdotes that would resonate emotionally, aware that numbers alone wouldn't win over the hearts of her audience. Emily wanted them to see not just the viability of her ideas but the conviction behind them. There was strength in vulnerability, she realized, and that might just be her secret weapon. It was nearly midnight when her phone chimed, jolting her from the creative zone. As she glanced at the message from Michael wishing her luck for the presentation, the text reignited the fire within. He had faith in her, which now demanded that she have faith in herself. She couldn't back down. The following morning, Emily dressed deliberately, choosing her outfit carefully. She opted for her favorite jacket, one that felt like a suit of armor but was still grounding and comforting. Standing before the mirror, she practiced her opening lines. The repetition helped, but conflict simmered beneath the surface. Would they listen? Would they engage? Or would they dismiss her again, curling into their comfort zones? Time crawled as she made her way to the meeting room. Each step felt monumental, a physical representation of crossing a threshold. The gravity of the event pressed down on her, and yet with every heartbeat, she felt the pulse of her determination. Inside the boardroom, she faced the experts, their expressions expectant, and her heart raced as she took her place at the forefront. The moment had arrived. She could either sink into self-doubt or rise as the advocate for change she sought to become. Taking a deep breath, she initiated her presentation, the thoughts swirling within her coalescing into a coherent narrative. She was halfway through when she caught the disinterested flicker of eyes she felt most intimidated by. Their impatience sent shivers down her spine, threatening to unravel her confidence just as the controversy of her introduction had sparked the electric charge the day before. The tension escalated again, but now Emily faced not only the judgment of the board but also her own growing courage. Would she let their skepticism extinguish her? Spiraling momentum? As the first question was poised for rebuttal, a part of her recognized this was her moment to either fold or return the challenge with vigor. But suddenly, an unanswered question loomed larger than ever. Could she truly transform this moment of vulnerability into an opportunity, or would she falter in what risked becoming her defining moment? A ripple of silence enveloped the room, and for a heartbeat, Emily felt like a deer caught in headlights. The question posed was laden with skepticism, a challenge wrapped in thinly veiled condescension. Instinctively, her breath hitched, but she refused to let that moment of doubt dictate her response. The phrase "think on your feet" echoed in her mind, and she seized the opportunity before her. "I appreciate your concern, and it's a valid point," she replied, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "However, if we consider the current market trends and focus on innovation rather than solely on what's been established, we can actually position ourselves as pioneers rather than followers." Surprise flitted across some faces, and for a fleeting moment, she sensed a shift. It wasn't just the board's judgment she sought to sway, it was about asserting her place in this landscape, staking her claim. She could shape the narrative of her career from this point onward. The questions continued, but her confidence began to blossom. As she fielded them, she discovered a rhythm, a dialogue rather than a monologue. In this exchange, Emily began to uncover a hidden reservoir of strength. The way she articulated her responses was transforming, each answer weaving a tapestry of competence that hadn't been there before today. Between questions, she caught snippets of supportive nods from Michael, his presence acting as a balm to her nerves. He was here, rooting for her, just as she had imagined while practicing in front of the mirror. It crystallized the idea that she was not alone. Every imposing figure in that room held their own insecurities despite their facade of authority. As the presentation continued, an unexpected question came forth. What would you do if this strategy doesn't bear fruit? How do we minimize losses? The inquiry struck hard, and the flicker of fear returned momentarily. She felt the familiar tug of self-doubt, but she pushed through it, drawing on the insight she had gleaned from past failures. Failure is a part of any journey, Emily stated with newfound poise. Understanding why something didn't resonate will give us critical insights for future endeavors. Instead of viewing it as a setback, I believe we should consider alternatives to pivot quickly and regain momentum. There it was. For a moment, she felt transcendence. She wasn't merely presenting ideas, she was shaping a narrative of resilience, a testament to her ability to adapt and learn. As she drew her main points to a close, she felt a strange exhilaration. The boardroom, once a crucible of judgment, had become a stage for transformative dialogue. With each moment, it was less about the ideas laid out in slides and more about her embodiment of authority and vision. Yet, just as she navigated this shift, a deeper contemplation stirred. Who was Emily without the fear that had bound her? What could she achieve if she continued to embrace this newfound courage? The thought prompted a mind-bending realization: her value extended beyond compliance, it lay in her ability to catalyze change. She concluded her presentation, heart racing but pulse steady, and dropped the final slide that showcased the potential return on investment. The room swelled with murmurs, the directors buzzing amongst themselves, and for the first time, she felt the intoxicating taste of possibility ripple through the air. But before they could fully engage with her proposition, a towering figure emerged from the back of the room. She recognized him. It was the company's elusive CEO, a man known for his ruthlessness and high standards. His presence amplified the tension, and Emily braced herself, caught between triumph and an impending revelation. "Your statistics are impressive, but..." His voice resonated, embodying authority and scrutiny that could either uplift or crush her truth. Emily's heart raced as she prepared for his interrogation. Would this be another stumbling block, or an opportunity to forge a meaningful connection? The stakes were now so much higher, and her inner resolve escalated. The time had come to face not only the board, but the very embodiment of the corporate challenge she had long been prepared for. Would she stand firm or lose herself once more in doubt? Emily steadied her breathing, her heart pounding in her chest like a drum. She had fought through a gauntlet of inquiries, and now faced the most daunting obstacle of all, the CEO's piercing gaze. His reputation preceded him, a mix of brilliant innovation and withering criticism. She sensed the palpable tension ripple through the room. It was a moment brimming with potential, and with it, the weight of expectations. "But what do you propose to legitimize such a bold strategy?" he finished, eyebrows raised, his tone both inquisitive and firm. After everything she had navigated, this was the defining moment. "Thank you for your question, sir," she began, the words sparking a fire within her. "To legitimize this strategy, we need to craft a comprehensive approach that integrates market analysis and consumer feedback. By leveraging data analytics tools, we can refine our strategy in real time, allowing for adjustments that cater to the shifting demands of our customers." She watched as he absorbed her words, noting a shift in his posture. No longer rigid, he appeared contemplative. Could it be that she had captivated his attention? Encouraged by this slight opening, she continued, weaving her vision with clarity and conviction. "Additionally, by engaging with industry leaders and thought innovators, we set ourselves apart as thought leaders, not just market participants. It's a proactive measure that builds credibility. We need to position ourselves at the forefront, where the competition can only follow." A flicker of surprise crossed the faces in the room. Emily had entered her own flow, her words cascaded with unexpected eloquence. She was no longer simply responding to questions but crafting a narrative, one primed to showcase not just numbers but a story of potential and excellence. "Interesting points," the CEO replied, his voice a touch warmer, yet still examining. "However, risk aversion is key in our business. What if innovation leads to a misstep?" "Every innovation carries risk," she asserted boldly. "But not taking risks can be far more damaging. Our competitors are evolving faster, and we risk obsolescence if we cling to outdated strategies. Embracing calculated risks opens doors to opportunities we might otherwise overlook." With each sentence, Emily felt a weight lifting. The room's atmosphere had shifted from skepticism to intrigue. She was no longer just the shy girl trying to prove her worth, she was emerging as a formidable contender in a landscape once dominated by others. With her adrenaline pumping, Emily took a moment to collect her thoughts. She meticulously balanced the high stakes against her fervent desire to succeed. To mitigate the risks, I propose a pilot program, she continued, finding strength in her own conviction. This would allow us to test the waters without full-scale commitment, gathering data and feedback that would enable us to pivot as needed. It's about learning and adapting in real time. The CEO leaned back, visibly intrigued. This represented a shift. For once, he was not a towering obstacle but a dialogue partner. It dawned on Emily that this was her moment to assert herself not only as an employee but as a visionary leader. But beneath this burgeoning confidence lingered an unsettling thought: was it enough to sway someone known for his staunch beliefs? Her mind raced, weighing the potential impact of her ideas against the shadows of doubt that still lurked. Before she could speculate further, the CEO gestured for silence. "You've presented a compelling case, Emily. I think we should explore this idea further." The room erupted into a mingled chorus of murmurs and tentative applause. Her heart soared with exhilaration, yet anxiety intermingled within. What if the execution of these ideas proved challenging? Could she deliver on the expectations this moment had birthed? As the meeting adjourned, the tension in the air hung palpably. Emily exchanged glances with Michael, his eyes wide with pride and encouragement. But just as Emily felt a swell of triumph preparing to wash over her, a nagging thought breached the horizon of her mind: what if the journey forward revealed not only her capabilities but also her biggest flaws? The very idea of uncovering imperfections stirred an unsettling sense of dread within her. Her path ahead was now shrouded in uncertainty. The taste of victory was sweet, yet the fear of what lay beyond self-discovery, failures, potential rejection lingered. And just as she began to reconcile these feelings, her phone buzzed in her pocket. With a glance, she saw a notification, an invitation for a follow-up meeting with the CEO. "Here we go again," Emily muttered under her breath, her resolve intensifying. What would this next meeting demand of her? Would it be another step toward her ambitions or a harrowing stumble into the unknown? Emily sat at her desk staring at the blinking cursor on her laptop, a mixture of anticipation and anxiety welling up inside her. The meeting invitation with the CEO loomed large, a constant reminder that everything she proposed had suddenly gained weight. It was no longer just a discussion, it was a potential defining moment in her career. Each tick of the clock felt heavier, deepening the tension in her chest. What if her ideas unspooled under scrutiny? The thought of failure gnawed at her, but alongside it flickered an ember of determination. She needed to transform that fear into a driving force. Instead of succumbing to self-doubt, she would prepare until every angle of her strategy gleamed under the harsh light of possible questions. She opened her notebook and began outlining her thoughts. The pilot program her baby needed more than a sales pitch, it needed structure, evidence, and clarity. Navigating through the potential outcomes, she jotted down methods to analyze consumer engagement metrics. Each bullet point became a steadying anchor, combating the swirling doubts. Yet, as she delved deeper into the logistics, her mind drifted to the CEO. Who was he, really? Yes, he was a titan of the industry, known for his keen insights and sharp direction. But what fears and failures lay hidden beneath his success? Did he confront uncertainty head-on or seek comfort in the familiar? With each thought, Emily's resolve to understand him became clearer. If she could connect on that level, perhaps he would see the person behind the presentation. After a restless day punctuated by intermittent moments of focus and panic, Emily arrived at her follow-up meeting. The conference room felt transformed by the evening light that seeped through the large windows. It felt less like Judgment Day and more like an opportunity to share a vision. The CEO was already seated, pen poised over a shimmering tablet. Surprisingly, he looked less intimidating now. His expression hinted at openness rather than the steely determination she had anticipated. "Emily," he greeted her, warmth creeping into his tone. "I've been reviewing your proposal. Walk me through your thought process again, specifically regarding the pilot program. This was it. The moment she prepped for. As she spoke, her voice steadied. She encountered the CEO not as an authoritative figure, but as a fellow explorer. By choosing a targeted demographic for the pilot, we can minimize risk and accelerate learning, she articulated. We'll gather qualitative data to enrich the quantitative findings, helping to tailor strategies effectively as we go. He nodded, eyebrows raised, as if weighing her words rather than challenging them. It was an opening, a sign that she was gaining traction. Interesting approach, he replied thoughtfully. What will you do if the initial feedback is overwhelmingly negative? The pivotal question. The sharp clarity of her plan wavered for a moment as the weight of that scenario registered in her mind. But then she found her footing. That feedback would be invaluable. Instead of viewing it as a setback, it would guide our iterations. An agile mindset is critical. We must evolve continuously based on what we learn. Her confidence surged in response to his gaze, which now glittered with a flickering respect. She was not parrying his doubts, she was building a collaborative vision, inviting him to join her instead. The conversation unfolded fluidly, spurring deeper insights from him that further fueled her ideas. By the time the hour had wound down, Emily felt a change not only in the room's atmosphere but within herself. She had transcended from anxious employee to a thoughtful strategist, advocating for her ideas with a new fire. But just as she began to bask in the gradual triumph of her successful presentation, the CEO leaned back in his chair, an enigmatic smirk creeping onto his face. You've got passion, Emily. But passion must be checked with reality. There's more at stake than you realize. Are you ready to face those realities, even when they get messy? His question hung ominously in the air, reminding Emily that while she had taken a crucial step forward, the journey ahead might still demand sacrifices and confrontations she hadn't anticipated. With her heart racing, she replied, I'm ready to embrace whatever comes next. But in her mind, a warning echoed louder. Could she truly face the untamed complexities ahead? The realization hit her she was poised on the precipice, peering into an uncertain future where everything depended on her forthcoming decisions. What awaited her beyond this moment? Would she find the strength to navigate through the chaos and risk everything for her vision? Emily's heart thumped erratically as she walked away from the meeting, the CEO's words echoing in her mind. Are you ready to face those realities? The question was more than an inquiry, it was a challenge. The assurance she had felt just moments ago ebbed away, replaced by a creeping trepidation about what the future held. Back at her desk, she opened her laptop, determined to dissect her own emotions. The pilot program was only the tip of the iceberg. Each phase projected different challenges, resounding repercussions, and potentially harsh criticism. Would her team support her under pressure? Would she even support herself? The depth of those questions left her feeling exposed, and she struggled to bear the weight of the unknown. Refilling her coffee, Emily noticed the bustling office around her. Colleagues chatted animatedly at their desks, entirely absorbed in their tasks. Could she muster that same confidence? Would they look to her for leadership, especially if everything began to unravel? It was in these moments of solitude, tucked away in her own thoughts, that Emily confronted her deepest fears: the fear of isolation, the fear of being wrong, the fear of not being enough. Instead of retreating under the weight of uncertainty, she decided to shift her focus. She grabbed a notepad and began crafting a blueprint for the project. This not only included consumer metrics but also had a section dedicated to potential setbacks and the importance of adaptability. If she anticipated challenges, perhaps she could wield them as tools for learning rather than sources of discouragement. In the following days, Emily made a concerted effort to connect with her team. She initiated brainstorming sessions, encouraging everyone to voice their ideas and concerns without fear. She discovered that they relished the opportunity to share insights, which made her feel less alone in her journey. Their enthusiasm sparked a new fire within her, a realization that she wasn't just a lone traveler charting a course through treacherous waters, she was part of a crew steering a vessel together. The deeper she dove into this collaborative atmosphere, the more she recognized the strength in collective feedback. One team member proposed a change in the pilot's duration to gather richer data. Another suggested adjusting the demographic focus slightly, making it more inclusive. Each contribution illuminated the project's potential in ways Emily hadn't anticipated, bolstering her resolve. This engagement transformed her initial vision into a living, breathing strategy capable of adapting to reality's unpredictable nature. Yet, even amid this burgeoning teamwork, just as she felt a sense of accomplishment, uncertainty resurfaced. Emily received an email, scheduling a follow-up meeting with the CEO. "He wants progress updates, not just feedback," she whispered to herself, tension knotting her stomach. Was her journey toward transparency beginning to unravel? She didn't fully trust the data yet, and what if the CEO perceived the minor modifications as undermining her original vision? The pressure loomed, a dark shadow threatening her newfound confidence. On the evening before the presentation, Emily pondered the upcoming meeting. Would she continue to lean into her team's ideas, or would she retreat to her comfort zone, trying to impress the CEO with singular brilliance? The quiet night drew a stark line between her growth and her instinct to recoil. As she glanced at her notes, a creeping thought formed: would owning her evolving vision mean risking her credibility? As sleep eluded her, she settled on one conclusion: she had to own her decisions, even if that meant revealing vulnerability. This could be an opportunity not only to present results but to showcase how collaboration could lead to transformation. Ultimately, Emily felt a surge of resolve. She had nothing to prove but everything to share. With the clock ticking down, she clutched her notes tightly, ready to embrace the messiness her role demanded. But just as clarity took shape, an alarming thought rushed in: would revealing her team's contributions lead the CEO to question her authority? As dawn broke, the uncertainty loomed large, and the stakes felt higher than ever. Could she reconcile vulnerability with authority in a way that would define her legacy? The answer rested in the presentations ahead, and she had to either soar or falter, and the outcome was entirely unpredictable. Emily paced the small conference room, her heartbeat echoing in her ears like an unwelcome metronome. The stark white walls felt suffocating, amplifying her anxiety. The presentation was not just another meeting, it was a pivotal moment that could redefine her career trajectory. She had overcome her initial doubts and engaged her team, yet facing the CEO alone rendered everything she had built vulnerable. As the door swung open, the CEO strode in, his authoritative presence filling the room. Emily's confidence momentarily flickered, his steady gaze pierced through her like a spotlight, demanding clarity and conviction. She forced herself to maintain eye contact, to command the space rather than retreat into it. "Thank you for meeting with me, Emily," he said, settling at the large table. "I'm eager to see what you've developed." Collecting her thoughts, Emily drew a breath, channeling the collective spirit of her team. She started strong, presenting consumer insights and forecasts, each statistic a stepping stone in her newfound role as a leader. As she navigated through the data, she noticed the CEO nodding, a flicker of interest igniting in his eyes. Yet, she sensed an underlying scrutiny, an unspoken challenge lurking within his silence. Then came the moment she had braced herself for the inquiry. "I see you've made adjustments to the pilot program. What prompted those changes, and how do you plan to communicate that to the stakeholders?" His question cut deeper than she anticipated. It was not merely an inquiry, it was a test of not just her data but her leadership. Was she the capable expert she claimed to be? Emily paused, feeling the weight of her team behind her, their ideas propelling her forward. "The modifications emerged from our collaborative brainstorming sessions," she articulated, allowing her voice to grow steadier. "By actively involving the team, we identified key consumer segments that could open new avenues. The adjustments enhance not only the data but the overall efficacy of the program." As she spoke, she sensed the atmosphere shift. The CEO's lips tightened, and his brow furrowed in contemplation. Was he disappointed? Or was he considering the potential of what she had shared? Interesting approach, he replied, folding his hands, curiosity paired with skepticism. Collaboration can be a double-edged sword, Emily. Have you thought about how you'll maintain control over the project as it evolves? A chill ran through her. Here lay the crux of her struggle, the dance between leadership and collaboration. Would standing on the shoulders of her team reduce her authority? Or would it reinforce it? Control relies on perspective, she quickly acknowledged, encouraged by a rush of instinct. I see my role as facilitating dialogue. The project is dynamic, and my responsibility is to guide it while remaining open to input. I believe that adaptability is crucial in a fast-paced environment. She watched the CEO's expression carefully, searching for clues. He remained inscrutable, yet there was a glimmer of respect in his eyes. Emily surged with a rush of adrenaline. Perhaps vulnerability was not a weakness but a powerful tool in mobilizing her vision toward success. As the meeting wrapped up, the CEO commended her effort. But his final words echoed ominously in her mind. Keep in mind, Emily, leadership is not just about managing the project, it's about managing perceptions. Bring me results. As she left the room, adrenaline coursing through her veins, Emily wrestled with the implications of his statement. Perceptions. Control. Collaboration. Her notions of authority felt fragmented, a complex puzzle that now demanded her attention. The reality hit hard: she could no longer continue as she had before. She needed a strategy not just for her project but for her identity as a leader. What did it mean to be in this position while balancing openness and authority? As she settled back at her desk, the weight of responsibility loomed even larger, challenging the very foundation of her ambitions. She couldn't shake the feeling that this journey was just beginning, with more revelations waiting in the shadows. Instinctively, she reached for her notepad, prepared to reevaluate her approach. The clock ticked forward. What new facets of her leadership journey awaited exploration? The uncertainty loomed ahead, a beckoning call to rise or risk failure once more. Emily sat at her desk, the muted sounds of the office gradually fading into a background hum as she stared blankly at the screen. Thoughts tumbled through her mind like errant leaves caught in a gust. The CEO's final admonition, "Bring me results," reverberated within her, anchoring her to the reality of her situation. Results. A simple word, yet it carried with it the weight of expectation, the harsh glare of scrutiny. Shaking off her paralysis, she began jotting down a series of detailed notes, scrutinizing the feedback she had received and her own reflections on the meeting. What had gone well? Where could she improve? Directly addressing the questions posed by the CEO was vital, but she also needed to create an environment where her team felt valued and engaged. It was time to restructure her approach. As she filled page after page, Emily realized she could cultivate a leadership style that didn't suppress collaboration but instead harnessed it. She envisioned regular check-ins with her team, establishing a transparent feedback loop that fostered not just openness but accountability. Would this enable her to maintain control while uplifting her colleagues? The idea lingered temptingly in her mind. Her office door swung open unexpectedly, interrupting her train of thought. It was Jessica, one of her team members, a spark of curiosity in her eyes. "Hey, Emily. You seemed tense after the meeting. Everything good?" Emily hesitated, caught between the instinct to shield her vulnerabilities and the desire to foster genuine dialogue. I'm figuring out how to balance the CEO's expectations with what we've initiated as a team," she admitted, studying Jessica's reaction. "It's daunting." Jessica leaned against the doorframe, the confidence radiating from her demeanor providing a spark of reassurance. "You know, I think it's pretty cool how you're involving us more. It feels less like top-down management and more like we're actually part of something. We're behind you, Emily." Their shared moment offered Emily a sense of solidarity, a reminder that she wasn't alone in her journey. The more she opened up, the more Jessica's enthusiasm reignited her own. Thanks, Jessica. I believe our collective input is our strength. But I need to figure out how to project that to the CEO effectively. It's just hard. Use what you have, Jessica encouraged, her eyes sparkling with resolve. Show him the data of our interactions. The insights we gather are valuable, they can demonstrate the program's success beyond numbers. A plan began to form in Emily's mind. Why not frame the adjustments not just as modifications on paper but as a narrative that showcased the team's journey? If she could encapsulate teamwork, collaboration, and results within a compelling framework, it could serve to challenge the CEO's skepticism. Determination surged within her, and as she detailed the new narrative approach in her notebook, she realized that this was more than just a strategy, it was a crucial stepping stone toward redefining her identity. Let us gather together, she said suddenly, her voice steady, infused with newfound clarity. I want to hold a session where we can share our insights and experiences. If we can compile a narrative that showcases our growth as a cohesive unit, we can demonstrate that adaptability isn't just about changing course, but about strengthening our foundation. Jessica nodded, excitement evident in her expression. Their conversation sparked a shift in Emily's mindset. Encouraged, she delved deeper into planning the session, considering the potential narratives and data points they could offer as proof of their progress. However, the whir of office activity began to swirl back into focus, and as her thoughts raced to next steps, an unsettling realization dawned on her: this path would force her to confront not just the CEO's evaluations but the collective perceptions she'd been unconsciously cultivating within her own team. So much was still at stake. Would they rally around her vision, or would she face dissent? Would her own fears of inadequacy rear their heads as she stepped into this leadership role, fully demanding their trust and commitment? As Emily's resolve solidified into an actionable plan, the office felt suddenly charged with anticipation and fear. She welcomed the challenge. It was time for her to rise and to test the boundaries of her leadership once and for all. All that remained was to put the wheels in motion and to prepare for what could be the most decisive moment yet. The clock ticked forward, anticipation building. Would she be able to transform that fragile collaborative spirit into something sturdy? The answer awaited her in the next meeting, where both her team's trust and her own certainty would be put to the test. The next day dawned with a clarity that Emily hadn't anticipated. As she prepared for the feedback session with her team, a sense of purpose settled over her. This wasn't merely about presenting data or brainstorming ideas, it was about solidifying her identity as a leader and creating a foundation for ongoing collaboration. She was ready to step into that role with confidence. Gathering her team in the conference room, Emily felt a mix of excitement and trepidation. The walls, once oppressive, now felt like a canvas, a space where ideas would flourish. As her team filed in, smiles exchanged among them thawed the air, transforming the atmosphere from tense to invigorating. Thanks for being here, everyone, Emily began, her voice steady. Today is about sharing our insights and defining our strategy together. I believe our strength lies in what we can create as a unit. The room buzzed with anticipation, and as she unveiled her vision for the session, she could sense shifting energies. Ideas flowed between her and her teammates, igniting discussions that deepened their connection. They explored the market data, dissecting trends and surging towards a lively dialogue about their upcoming pilot program. Emily facilitated the conversation, making space for every voice to be heard, and soon it became clear this was a team in full bloom. As they collaborated, Emily observed herself taking on the role of a guide rather than a solitary hero. She tapped into various viewpoints, allowing her team to voice their concerns and ideas freely. What can we learn from the adjustments we've already considered? She prompted, encouraging contributions, even those that bordered on the critical. By being flexible, we can pivot quickly based on real-time feedback, suggested Jessica, echoing the sentiment of creative agility. Yes. Agility is key, Emily affirmed, her confidence blossoming as she realized that their diverse insights wove together a more cohesive and robust strategy than she could have conceived alone. As the ideas mounted and each positive suggestion built, Emily felt herself transform as a leader. The initial fears that had plagued her receded, replaced by an overarching framework that embraced vulnerability and dictated authority. She was no longer just the shy analyst who feared judgment, she'd become a competent communicator, a weaver of narratives, capable of energizing those around her. By the end of their session, Emily felt a wave of exhilaration wash over her. Together, they had crafted a compelling narrative that highlighted their successes, upcoming plans, and the collaborative spirit that breathed life into their project. The realization struck her that this was not just a fleeting moment of triumph. They had created a shared identity, and Emily was at the helm as a decisive leader. In the days that followed, she compiled their insights and crafted a presentation that showcased not only the data but the story of their team's growth. Each slide resonated with the voices of her teammates, it felt authentic, expansive, and brimming with potential. When the moment arrived to present to the CEO, she walked into that conference room with a steadiness grounded in her experience. The familiar weight of the CEO's scrutiny no longer loomed as an oppressive shadow but rather as an engaging challenge she was ready to tackle head-on. "Thank you for meeting with me again," Emily began, her voice unwavering. "Today, I want to share not just data on our pilot program but the journey we've undertaken as a collaborative team. Together, we've tailored our approach based on shared insights and adaptability, preparing us for greater success." As she spoke, the room transformed, the CEO's gaze shifted from skepticism to intrigue. He engaged with her narrative rather than questioning her authority, and Emily felt the rhythm of conversation flourish, buoyed by the strength of her previous session with her team. His questions compelled her to reflect on their discussions, prompting deeper dialogue about the anticipated outcomes of their proposed changes. And with each answer Emily provided, she felt the liberation of authenticity, grounding her perspective in both data and the collective effort of her colleagues' contributions. By the time she concluded, the atmosphere buzzed with a palpable energy. The CEO leaned back, processing her arguments. "Impressive work, Emily. Your strategy is both ambitious and adaptable," he said, a hint of approval warming his usually stoic demeanor. "Let us move forward." Joy surged through Emily as she left that meeting. She had proven to herself and to her colleagues that vulnerability paired with collaborative strength could carve out her space in the corporate landscape. She felt recognized as a leader not just for her ideas but for the unity she fostered among her team. Her ultimate personal achievement was not just successfully navigating the meeting but transforming her identity into one that embraced both decisiveness and inclusivity. This was a profound realization. Her quiet tenacity had become not just a part of her but a formidable tool for empowerment. As she returned to her desk, Emily smiled at the realization that she had conquered her fears. The journey had transformed her from a timid analyst into a confident facilitator. She was now ready to tackle the world on her terms. Emily stood at her desk, heart glowing with a newfound confidence. She had not just survived her challenges, she had thrived. Now, she could look to the future, equipped not only with authority but also with a genuine sense of purpose. The moment had arrived for her to shine. And now, it's your turn to embrace power and transformation. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that inspire change. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, and make sure the world gets to witness these incredible journeys. Comment your reactions and theories about Emily's triumphant conclusion. Let your voice be heard. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this riveting conclusion. You need to support this channel now. Don't wait even one more second. Let us keep the momentum going together.